I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. This week, should the voting age be lowered to 16?
My inclination is no, only because I think about myself at age 16 and where I was.
I don't think that would be unreasonable at all. I mean, 16-year-olds are really smart.
18, I think, is a good age.
Those elections are going to affect you in the future, so.
But first, since COVID-19 came into our lives, the way we live, the way we interact, and the way we communicate has changed drastically. The same thing can be said about politics and for all levels of government, as priorities had to take a sudden turn in order to manage this. We took to the streets to ask Canadians what effect COVID has had not only on government, but also on the women and men elected to public office. Our question: how has COVID-19 changed Canadian politics?
Well, I think at first it was how it changed Canadian politics was there seemed to be a sense of collaboration, like decisions needed to be made quick for the interest of public safety. And so what I noticed at the beginning was a lot of putting, political views aside and just doing what needed to be done as quickly as possible to get people the support they need. Whether or not that's going to continue or has continued, I think is up for debate. But at first, that seemed to be what was happening.
It's a bit of a tight rope to walk for politicians, I think, and trying to appease both sides, which has kind of ended up in a deadlock, it feels like to me. Not a lot has really been done, and it's great with CERB, and that's helped people out, but eventually that's not a long-term solution, and eventually that money is going to have to be paid back, and it seems to be causing a bigger rift, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
I don't think the politicians seem to want to show up now in Parliament, that's for sure, and they're using this as an excuse to get away with it. That's what I believe anyway.
What I've been observing right now, I think both parties were trying their best to help out, help the economy, help the people out, regardless of their different ways and opposing ways. I think both outcomes is just survive and then make this country sure it's gonna recover and people are protected.
Canadian politics is definitely under a very scrutinized lens. I think that Parliament and members had to make decisions very, very quickly. They did what had to be done for the economy, for the better of, I guess, society. And of course, they've been scrutinized for that. So I guess they've just been really in the public light a little bit more than usual.
That's a hard one. I think elections, New Brunswick had a tough election, so that really affected that. And I think it really pushed the governments towards social services rather than pure capitalistic stuff. It's been very tough for politicians to deal with business shutdowns and things like that. But we were overserviced in many of the retail and restaurant services anyway. So a little bit of fallback isn't. There are going to be some winners and losers, but a little bit of shrinkage isn't going to hurt us too much. There'll still be a place to get a coffee.
I just think it's made everything more complicated. It's just added another layer.
Yeah, I think you can just really tell how much the economy matters to certain people and how much health matters to certain people. So it's a divide a bit. I guess.
It's made it a lot more divisive. I would say that too, for sure.
I think it just reorganized a lot of the priorities. A lot of the focus is actually on making sure people are safe and taking the right measures for that.
So basically, I'll see they more health they care about, but economy as well is number two. Will come after that.
I don't know. The topic of universal basic income became more relevant because this could have been a trial period, or some people are discussing it as a potential trial period. So it opens up the discussion for a lot of new ideas that wouldn't have otherwise had breathing room, I think.
I don't think at its root we're seeing any changes in Canadian politics itself in the larger sense. You might see some small ones in local electoral contests, but the overall structure is not changing. We're still seeing an elite that largely operates through the two main parties. At the local level, maybe some small adjustments. People may be afraid of local voting, but there are no structural changes here.
definitely did change the order of priorities drastically, and obviously for the next little while, nobody knows exactly how long they're going to have to deal with the impact of COVID on the all sphere of our lives.
I think it's made more of a division amongst the political parties, probably, and the people.
Definitely has changed Canadian politics. I think it's made people focus more on the leader and what he's doing about it.
In politics, it's changed. I think that the Liberals did an amazing job with acting fast, so helping Canadians to get their CERB and get them on benefits that they need it.
Oh, geez. I think we spent too much for sure on CERB, giving all the money away. It's going to come back to bite people in the butt with taxes and everything, I think, because I don't think a lot of people saved, money from what they got. It's going to be interesting to see what the economy, next year is like, that's for sure, with all the money given away. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be interesting.
As we see reports in the U.S. about what they consider to be systemic racism, here in Canada, we are also not without our flaws. Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller says more steps need to be taken to address systemic racism in this country, which includes our healthcare system. So once again, we take the topic to you. Our question: is systemic racism a problem in Canada?
There is systemic racism in that it's built into the structure of our society. For the large segment of the population, it is invisible or non-existent, but it is a growing problem as we get a larger non-Northern European population who we need to do important jobs and we need to include in society, but have failed to do so.
I think it is, yes. I think recognizing it is a step forward, and then we can start about addressing it and taking, again, the right measures to do it.
Do believe that it does exist, and I believe we see the manifestation of that in our everyday life, whether we like it or not. For me personally, I think the worst discrimination in this country is definitely the Indian Act that basically made the Aboriginal victim of all kind of systemic dysfunction of our society.
I mean, we like to think of Canada as the better version of the States, and we don't have a problem here like we have in the States, but I don't think that fully represents Canada. We have a big issue. We have murdered and missing Indigenous women. That only became something that we talked about in recent years, when it's been a known problem for many years. So I think in terms of Indigenous relations, there's a lot of work to be done. And there's some work that's being done that's just starting now, but it's long overdue.
Well, there is, but you cannot see it. As somebody came from a different background, I would see it sometimes, not a lot. I grew up in different countries. I grew up in Europe. I grew up in Russia as well when I was young. So over there, it's clearly see it. Over here is much, much, much less. But you can feel it sometimes as a racism or difference of the people over here. But very low, comparing to the other countries in the world, I mean.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Especially right now, we see a lot of the problems going on in Digby with the lobster fishing, so I think people should be super aware that it's still an ongoing issue.
I'm a school teacher, so I've studied the residential school system and how that has affected the generations that came out of it. But also the ideologies that implemented that system, the same structures, the same family compact that put the structures into place originally that would do that sort of atrocity of a system, that's still in place.
Yeah, I think it's a problem for some people in Canada. Some people recognize it as a big problem. Other people may not recognize it. I think that's the challenge of systemic racism, and the movement around it is for people to help people recognize it a little bit more, and I think that's the state we're at in Canada now.
Definitely. I think it's a problem worldwide. It's everywhere. It's been there, it's still here, it's not going anywhere until we address it head on.
It's really hard to tell, even though I'm a part of the visible minority. I've been treated well here, and people are respectful. I have lots of friends, different backgrounds. So yeah, I think it will be different for every person.
I think definitely within the Indigenous community, especially, I think obviously like Black people are discriminated against as well, but I think because we have such a large population of Indigenous people, and that has been like an ongoing like issue since the very beginning of Canada, like I think it's definitely an issue still today because nothing's changed really.
Not in my world. You know, we talk about that quite often. You know, people at the pubs or whatever, you could have a multitude of races and whatnot, and we all seem to get along. It's the elites and whatnot that seem to be creating the problem. In fact, we see this quite a bit with the, with be it sexism, racism, it's pitting man against woman, black against white, through the media.
I think to say that it isn't would be, completely untrue. I think probably there's racism still all over the world, but definitely Canada is not immune to it. And to deny that it exists would be to put the people who suffer from it in a position where they're not being seen and their issues are not being heard.
I don't think it is. A lot of other people do, but I myself don't think it is. I think it's blown out of proportion a lot, and they're using it as a way to try to get their wants across to other people. And I don't know. To me, I think Canada's a lot less racist than a lot of other countries, for sure.
Racism is never going to be something that doesn't exist. How you feel racism is a completely personal experience. Personally, I think that when I deal with people that have seen the world, traveled the world, I don't necessarily feel any form of racism. When I deal with people that are more unhappy in their own skin, I feel a certain tension that has nothing to do with me, but with them and how they see my differences as a trigger for them. So personally, I'm fine because I never had any problem.
Yes, I think it's a problem everywhere. It's just finally being addressed. It's been made more aware as to technology and the ability to film. That's really just brought it to light a bit more. I think it's always been an issue. It's just finally being addressed right now, and it's going to, with how long it's been going on, I think it's going to take time to earn trust back and fix that problem.
What was former Prime Minister John Diefenbaker's nickname? The Boss, the Chief, the Warrior?
I feel like it's the Chief.
I would go with the Chief.
The Warrior? The Chief. The Chief sounds better, I guess.
The Boss? I don't know. I'm gonna go with the Boss.
I'd say the Warrior.
I'm gonna go for the Boss. I'm gonna go for the Warrior. The Chief.
You are absolutely correct, madam.
Oh! Yes!
John G. Diefenbaker served as Canada's 13th Prime Minister from 1957 to 1963. Prior to his term as Prime Minister, Diefenbaker was known for his fiery presence in the Conservative opposition benches during years of Liberal rule in the House of Commons. After twice failing to win the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party, he was finally victorious in 1956. During the 1957 federal election, Diefenbaker's unique theatrical campaigning style, along with his calm and appeal, helped his party win a minority government, and he became known as Dief the Chief. The following year, Diefenbaker's Progressive Conservatives would go on to win a strong majority government. It was during his term as Prime Minister that Indigenous peoples were first permitted to vote federally. Diefenbaker appointed James Gladstone as Canada's first Indigenous senator, and also chose Ellen Fairclough to be the first woman ever to serve in a federal cabinet position in Canada. Diefenbaker would continue to be a member of Parliament from Saskatchewan following his years as Prime Minister and party leader. He won his last election in 1979, 3 months before his passing. A face mask. Here in the city of Ottawa, as well as in other jurisdictions in the country, face masks are mandatory in all indoor public spaces and outdoor spaces as designated. But that rule can vary from city to city and province to province, as COVID numbers are higher in some areas than in others. Health experts tell us wearing a mask is an effective way to protect each other from infection. So, should it be a golden rule right across the board? Our question. Should face masks be mandatory nationwide?
Probably not right now, but I suspect that might be happening in the near future. But I think if it's necessary, they should be mandated, especially in public spaces.
I don't think so. No, not for me at least. You know, I think it all depends on your immune system. You know, if you have older people going out, then maybe they should wear them. But I think it should be an option, considering that less than 1% of people die from it. Like how many people die from the flu every year from pneumonia? So, it's kind of a weird area, I think. So it could be either or. But for me personally, I don't think so. But if people want to wear them, that's fine too.
I think the regulations should suit the need, not standard across the board, because certainly we have high population and low population areas. We have high spreading areas, and for instance, New Brunswick doesn't have an international airport, and we're all quite spread out. So as long as we're not really seeing numbers, I don't think that we should be having the same regulations as, say, Montreal, where it's spreading around quite rampantly.
It should be. I'm in healthcare. I don't have a mask on because I'm outside right now, and I know you have one on, but they should be all or none, because you don't know what stores you're going into that you have to wear one, which ones you don't, and it would just be so much easier if everyone had to wear one everywhere they are. That's what I think.
And I would reiterate what she said, but I also, with what's going on in the United States, I mean, that should be a prime example of why we should really be diligent, do our due diligence about wearing masks in this country. We certainly don't want to end up like they are in the States.
And another thing, it's like you're doing it out of respect for people who have weakened immune systems, people who can't control, that they can catch it much easier than other healthy human beings. So it's out of respect of other people, I think, as well.
I don't think so, because you're going to have people that, like you say, they have breathing problems. They can't wear one, and you get also people with on oxygen tanks and stuff. They can't really put one on plus their mask to begin with. As for making it mandatory, I don't think they should be, because you're infringing on each and every individual rights.
I firmly believe that yes, they should be. I think it's very imperative that everybody does wear their face mask no matter where they go, to the grocery store, to the bank. You just never know when you're going to come in contact with somebody that's been exposed to the virus, so it's very imperative.
Personally, I just think if you're clean with the hand sanitizer, why we have to wear a face mask kind of boggles me, Germs on your hands, clothes, on the mask, But once again, it's a way of life now.
I believe yes, because we are in a pandemic and we should do our best to protect each and every one, right? So wearing a face mask won't hurt. Like wearing it like 4 hours. I flew to Vancouver wearing face masks all the way, and it's not that bad. So if it can be done, it should be done, regardless of being propaganda around in social media. Like, it's just a part of protecting our people, so why not?
Now that we're this far into the pandemic and the research that's been done on COVID-19, I think it's pretty conclusive that mask wearing is an essential part of making sure that people are limiting the spread of the disease, and that masks are a huge part of that. So I don't really see why it wouldn't be.
Not at all. I think if you want to wear them, you wear them. If you don't want to wear them, you don't wear them. But I mean, if a business is saying you have to wear a face mask, I think you should put it on because that's the rule, or you don't shop there. Simple as that. No ifs, ands, or buts about that one.
Absolutely, they should. There's a pandemic, anyone can get sick. You sneeze on a surface, it's there for a few hours or whatever. Everyone can catch it. We should all wear masks everywhere. Stop the spread quicker, I guess.
No. We've got 97% compliance here in Edmonton, and the rates are going through the roof. So it's not working.
It's just to make sure that everyone is safe. We're stronger together. And, you know, if we want to get out of this pandemic sooner rather than later, face masks are one of the easiest ways to do it.
I think so. I believe that we all have a moral and social responsibility, and if this is the least we can do, then we should all be partaking for the sake of others, especially vulnerable and elderly populations.
I don't think so, because I think a lot of people can't wear them for certain reasons, medical reasons, and for a lot of people it's just causing a lot of confusion, and and people aren't really clear about the rules, so it would just be easier if maybe there were less restrictions. Yeah.
I disagree. I think they should be mandatory everywhere, because we want to get this virus under control as soon as possible. And it would really help if everyone just did their part and wore the mask. There would be less problems relating to the virus. So, yeah, it would be over a lot faster if everyone just did their part.
It was back in 1970 when the legal voting age was lowered from age 21 to 18, opening up a whole new wave of eager voters willing to have their say whenever an election was called. Well, now there's talk of that happening once again and lowering the voting age from 18 to 16. One could argue that 16 is too young to vote, but it's also the age that one is permitted to operate a motor vehicle. Lowering the voting age also has signaled support from the federal Green Party and the NDP. So now it's over to you. Our question: should the voting age be lowered to 16?
That's a really good question. I don't know if most 16-year-olds really understand the severity of that sort of stuff. They're still just kids. I think that's a much deeper question than just a yes or a no. Probably not.
No. I don't think 16-year-olds are that interested in politics. Not the majority.
No, I think it should stay 18, because even 18-year-olds can't do much for themselves. So, no, I think it should be 18 is a good age for voting, for sure. Yeah.
That's a hard one. It depends on the 16-year-old, and it depends on what their interest. We let them drive. Maybe it's a bit too young to let them drive as well. So, no, I don't think so.
No.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Because my generation, the millennials, as it is, aren't making informed decisions. They're just kind of, either they're not going out to vote, or they're just kind of doing what their parents do, or just like, oh, I heard this, I'm sure I'll give you my vote. But to me, you need to take a look at all the parties' platforms and make an informed decision, because you can make a change. We can make a change if you want to make a change.
No, definitely not. Don't think that they're mature enough to realize the issues, the topics. No offense to the youth, but 18, I think, is a good age.
Well, I'm 17. I'm a little biased. I think that lowering the voting age to 16 would be a good thing, because I pay taxes. I would like to know that I would like to dictate where my money is going and what my impact on the community is. While I don't think that maybe, I'd have to read more into it, I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing.
With some more information and education for people 16 and letting them know what they're getting into, I don't think that would be unreasonable at all. I mean, 16-year-olds are really smart. A lot of 16-year-olds are smarter than people who are well over 16. So, I mean, so long as they're, some sort of prep for what they're getting into and the responsibilities, I don't think that would be a bad thing at all.
It's good. I'm fine with it. I think it's a good idea.
And what about you?
Yeah, I think so, because also it would encourage them to learn more about politics from a younger age, and they have all the resources now to do that. So I think it would be effective for them and their learning.
Should the voting age be lowered to 16?
Yeah, I think so, because there's nothing stopping from a 16-year-old from learning about the government and politics, especially now, like Mom said, with the internet, and everyone's got their political opinion. So, yeah, why not? They can know just as much as an adult. So,
no, I don't think so. I think in high school you learn a lot about politics, and then once you hit 18, I think it's a good age to start voting.
No, not at all. No, not enough life experience. In fact, if anything, it should be raised.
No. I will tell you why. Because when I look at the maturity level of a 16-year-old and the impact of casting one vote, I definitely would not let anybody who hasn't processed life to a certain level have an impact on such a very important part of society.
Yeah, I think 16-year-olds are capable of expressing an opinion, and possibly a more informed opinion than some of the older voters.
And you would really have to make them care about the issues. I feel like when you're younger, it's really easy to have like a really small view of what your world is affected by, and how you affect the world. And so as you get older, you have like more of a broad scope, whereas I think it'd be hard. Like, I'm trying to think of if I would have like had the knowledge to vote at 16. Yeah. I'm not sure where my priorities would have been, you know?
As a 16-year-old, those elections are going to affect you in the future. So I think it definitely should be lowered.
No, 18 is fine. It is 18, yes. I think that's fine. Yeah, I think 16, you're still too immature to take that on, but...
I don't know. That's a tough one. My inclination is no, only because I think about myself at age 16 and where I was, and my ability to make mature decisions and my ability to really be an adult. If it was me, probably not, but times have changed. I think Gen Z is a lot more informed, having grown up with the internet, having grown up with all of the information available to you. I think they're a little more aware than where I would have been at that age. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.